Hey everybody, welcome back to the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. I'm your host, Gordo Gambles, and welcome back to another full card breakdown. This time for UFC Vegas 69. Yeah, we got ourselves Andrade versus Blanchfield, and you know what? This card is so beautiful that this had to be my Valentine. I'm filming this on Valentine's Day. It is what I've been looking forward to. It is the new love of my life because it is star-studded and packed with entertainment. It's a tough one. It's a tough one to do these breakdowns for, but you know what? We're here. We're ready to make some money, ready to capitalize off of what was a good DraftKings weekend last week. We didn't make the most money. We actually went down quite a few units. I counted away too much violence, but that was counteracted by the DraftKings picks. We had a decent DraftKings day. And we're looking to build on that. Maybe less volume from a betting perspective, but we're not going to let 1 week take us down. We're going to make some money on this card no matter how, disgusting it may be. We still have fights. We still have something to look forward to. Let's not waste any more time. Starting off in flyweight, we have the 6-0 Clayton Carpenter versus the 4-1 Juan Camilo Ronderos. Nice. Ronderos comes in the UFC, faces David Dvorak, gets treated accordingly for that huge step up in competition, but now he's back. He served a suspension for a little bit of marijuana, a little bit of coke. And as a punishment for that suspension, they give him this up-and-coming prospect in Clayton Carpenter, a guy who really impressed in Dana White Contender Series, a guy who actually fought a decent level of competition himself, and is an overall fun fighter to watch. I mean, this guy is very aggressive. He has lots of finishing potential. This guy's able to finish a fight no matter where it goes. He trained with some decent guys there at the MMA lab, and he's a guy who has not only the ability to mix it in with the takedowns, but he's able to have a very, very well-rounded game no matter where it goes. And I really liked what I see from him from this small sample size. Now, Ronderos is a bit different because we haven't really seen his full potential. We've seen him on short notice against a much better guy, in my opinion, than Carpenter is. But I do think that when we have this first slot, when we have this first fight of the night, you're looking for either one of two things, a showcase spot or a violent bout. I really do think that's what they're trying to do here in the UFC. And this to me feels like a showcase. Clayton Carpenter's a guy who they liked and they want to bring back in here and get him going with the win. And this is probably a guy he can do that against. Ronderos, I think, although he isn't terrible, I think he's going to be a bit slower than Carpenter at a lot of these places, especially the defensive wrestling. I think that Carpenter's got the ability to take down Ronderos, have his way with him on the mat, and I would not put a submission past him because Carpenter can be very dangerous on the ground. On the feet, I do think it's decently close. I think the output, the volume, and the aggression goes towards Carpenter, and for that reason, he should be winning a lot of the minutes as well. But I do think that this favorite price tag is justified for him. How am I targeting this on DraftKings though? 9.3K. It is kind of hard to get to him because sure, Ronderos was finished last time, but I don't think he's too easy to get out of there. I think he's got a decent chin, decent ability working in the feet. So really, can Carpenter get that submission? I think so. I think he's got a high work rate, and within only an 11 fight card, you're going to need to be different. You need to find these guys who have finishing potential no matter where it goes. I think Carpenter has some good GBP upside here with that takedown upside, with that finish upside. And I do think that he's a high floor nonetheless. So he's a guy I'm looking to target in a lot of these lineups. 9.3, a bit expensive, but with the amount of volatility on this card, I don't think it'll be too hard to get to him. I like me some Clayton Carpenter this week. Speaking of guys we like, AJ Fletcher is fighting this week. He's facing off Themba Gorimbo, and this is going to be a fight that is just going to be electric for as long as it lasts. Two guys who are about that action, who have this confident, arrogant style, and I like to see that with them. I think AJ Fletcher is going to be the much better fighter all around. I'm not going to get past that, but the one thing you got to give Gorimbo is that huge reach advantage. 9.5-inch reach advantage for Gorimbo this week, and that power is definitely something he has, but AJ Fletcher's a guy who we haven't really seen have too much of a chin issue. I mean, he's only had two losses, and those two losses, they were very, very close decisions. You could give them either way, but he's fought tough guys, and I do think this is a much bigger step down in competition going from people like Lusa, like Samuelsberger, down to someone like Themba Gorimbo. I do think that reach advantage is something you're going to have to pay attention to, but when it comes to the overall skill set, the technical striking, the ability to get to the ground, and the control from up top, I think it's AJ Fletcher all day. He has finishing power on the feet, lots of volume, and also a very good ground game to back, who has shown to have submissions and finishes in his own right. I think Gorimbo's too wild. I don't think he's technical enough, and I don't think he's tight enough to get past someone like Fletcher, who will be better technically and have fought the better level of competition. So for a guy in AJ Fletcher who's super strong, super durable, has good volume, face better level of competition, I do think this is his world, and he may be one of my favorite money line pieces. I do think he wins this fight at a very, very high clip. Now, I know we just talked about me trying to make money on this card, so maybe I won't parlay him, but if I were to parlay somebody, it would probably be AJ Fletcher. DraftKings side of things, 9.1K. I do think this guy is super, super tough, and I don't see him being finished like someone in Gorimbo on the spot, making his floor very, very high as well. What's his ceiling, though? This guy himself is super strong. He has the ability to go out there and get takedowns. He got 4 against Samuelsberger, and I think he can put up way more than that against someone in Gorimbo, this time with finishing potential. I think that AJ Fletcher, and this is no exaggeration, may be one of my favorite DraftKings players of the entire slate because he has finished potential, he has volume, he has takedowns, and this guy has a very, very high floor to back that. Not only, but he's plus 105 inside the distance. People are expecting him to go out there and get a finish, and I have to agree. So you're getting a guy at 9.1 who not only has a super high floor, but has a good ceiling as well with finish potential, takedown potential. I like this kid, and I think he gets it done pretty convincingly this week. Now, this next one's a fun one, and not a fight that I'm backing a guy as convincing as I have been the last two, but you do have Sadhykov versus Elder here. Elder's a guy who showed great resiliency, but when you're fighting, and the best part about you is your toughness, it's never really a good thing. And that's really all we saw from him was he survived against Parsons, but he got dominated in the process. And I don't think that he is a bad fighter by any means, but that's what I remember most. I don't remember him being the most technically gifted fighter. I don't think he has the best takedown defense, but he's tough and he will always stay in the fight and he'll be a dog for your money. Other side of things, Sadhykov. He went out there, third round finish on Dana White Contender Series, and man, does this dude have power. The problem I have with this guy is he's also just kind of a power threat. I don't like the way he reacts to his punches. I don't like the way he goes out there and wins minutes. I don't think he's the best defensively either because he has been put in some bad spots, but he has this touch of death power. The problem is, how does his power work out when you're facing a guy who we just talked about having resiliency as his best option? If Sadhykov is not able to go out there and find the finish on Evan Elder, I think Evan Elder will win more minutes. I think he will have the ability to put some punches together and try to get Sadhykov off his game and maybe win the minutes in the eyes of the judges. What this really comes down to, in my personal opinion, is the wrestling. Because although both these guys aren't the best defensively, I do think that Sadhykov may have better control there, and I do think he has better ability to win minutes there. Elder doesn't seem to go to it too often, and if he does, I don't think he'll have the same success as if Sadhykov were able to do the same thing in return. So in my eyes, that's the money maker here. It's the minute winning of Elder versus the moment winning of Sadhykov. And I do think that I'm going to have to slightly edge towards the favorite here on Sadhykov, but I think Elder's a very, very live underdog. I think he has the ability to get dirty, get violent, really mess up and try to get in the head of the guys making his debut in Sadhykov. So to me, a fun fight with lots of variance, and although I am slightly leaning towards Sadhykov, I will have some ownership of Elder on DraftKings. Next up, Felipe Lins versus OSP. I made fun of OSP a bit recently, the corpse of OSP actually, because he just hasn't been that same fighter he used to be. 39 years old, has been knocked out in 2 of his losses, and his one win was against a split decision against another guy I make fun of for being old in Shogun Rua. So this is a very, very interesting spot with a guy who I think had some good potential, but he's nearing the end of his career. Felipe Lins is a guy I haven't really been able to get a read on because he came into the UFC after a spectacular run in PFL and just hasn't looked the same. He got knocked out by Tanner Boser. No one gets knocked out by Tanner Boser. He was finally able to put it together against a super, super tired Marcin Prachnio, who we will talk about later, but I don't think that his style necessarily is going to bode well against OSP here. I think that if Felipe wants to win this fight, it's going to include a lot of volume, taking people down and looking to win minutes here. And I don't think that's necessarily the best path to victory against OSP, who has that submission game, who has the power on his feet, and although who is horrible at throwing volume, can connect. Power is the last thing to go, and I do think that OSP has more finishing potential in this fight. What I will say, though, is I think Lins has more upside. I think the Lins that we have today in front of us is a better overall athlete, and I think he has the ability to utilize these tools at this point of his career more than OSP can, who is in the later years of his career. So although I think it's super, super dangerous to back Lins here, and I don't really know if I want too much of his ownership at 8.8K on DraftKings, he should be the better technical fighter, should have more minute-winning potential, and as long as he avoids both the submissions on the ground of OSP and the power of the feet of OSP, he should be winning this fight at a pretty high clip. All this to say, I do think OSP is a live underdog, and at 7.4K on DraftKings, I will have some shares of him because his win condition, in my opinion, is probably a finish. An under is another way I might look at this one. I think the under is at plus money, which is a very interesting look for two guys who have been finished a lot. So I might look there. Either way, it is a dangerous, dangerous fight with lots of variance. Same as the last one. This one may be a bit more to the extreme with it being more variance. The pick's going to be Felipe Lins because I think he is the better overall fighter with a higher ceiling here. However, when we're talking about DraftKings ceilings, OSP may have that because he does have more finish potential in this spot. Next up, we have the 18-6 Jamal Emmers versus the 23-0 Hussein Ashkabov. Yeah, you heard that. 23-0. That guy sounds like he has an amazing record. He should be the best fighter on this card, and yet the money's coming in on Jamal Emmers. What's going on? Well, we've really found out that Ashkabov is kind of a fraud. We don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. We don't know what his skill set's really like because he's fought camps. This is going to be a huge step up for Ashkabov facing a guy like Jamal Emmers. Luckily for Ashkabov, Jamal Emmers is up there with Jimmy Crute in terms of fight IQ. I mean, Jamal Emmers tried to heel hook Pat Sabatini. The one guy you do not want to go to the ground with, the one guy you don't really want to tangle up your legs with in Pat Sabatini. Emmers did that. He's taken the time off, but you cannot trust a guy in Jamal Emmers. Funny enough, though, you kind of want to in this spot because I do think he is a better overall fighter, and the bookies are looking at a guy in Ashkabov, looking at his 23-0 record and saying, all right, he should be the favorite in this spot. I think Emmers is more talented. I think we've seen more from Emmers from a talent perspective to really rule him as an underdog here. I think that he should probably be favored in this spot until Ashkabov can prove it to us at a high level like the UFC. Ashkabov is not a guy who likes to be hit too much. He has a good offensive wrestling. He does throw himself with lots of power, but he hasn't fought anybody who's going to throw that same resistance. I don't think he's the best striking defense. I don't think we've really seen him face too much adversity. I just think there's more question marks behind this guy. How is he going to look dragged into deep waters? How is he going to look when someone can actually counter his pretty poor striking defense? What happens when someone can stop the takedowns? Because I think that is his best asset. I think Emmers has the tools to do all that, but at the same time, Emmers is the most likely guy to go out there and put himself in a guillotine because his fight IQ is so subpar. But really, who's the lesser of two evils here? Who's the guy you trust more? The guy who you haven't seen enough to really trust in the first place, or the guy who you trusted before and broke your heart due to poor fight IQ? I think having Jamal Emmers is probably a good idea here. The money's coming on him, and I have to agree with that because he does have more upside in this spot. We have seen more from him, and I do think he's able to go out there and probably piece off Ashkabov to either a late finish or decision, and that's why I kind of want his ownership at 7.9K on DraftKings. With that, though, comes a huge question mark. He's going to be extremely high owned. Ashkabov is getting all the hate in the world because of his fraudulent record, and Ashkabov at 8.3K is probably going to be very, very under-owned. So do you take the chalky side with the guy you think should be favored, or do you go a bit contrarian? Do you take the guy whose path to victory is probably wrestling and maybe a guillotine finish? I kind of like Ashkabov on DraftKings because he has that contrarian play, because he is low-owned, and he has decent upside in his own right. But if I'm having to pick a winner in this spot, I'm going to have to go Jamal Emmers. Overall, a very, very interesting fight. Next up, we have MBS, Mara, Bueno, Silva versus Lena Lansberg. I think it's Silva all day long here. I'm getting a lot of hate saying, don't trust her minus 420. I get that. You shouldn't really be parlaying women's MMA too much, but this is Silva's world, I think, in my opinion. Lena Lansberg has a decent clinch game. She has those elbows, but I don't think she's a match here for Silva. The biggest problem for MBS is she doesn't shoot takedowns. She's a great ground game, but doesn't utilize it too much. I think she'll be able to get takedowns at will if she goes there, but even if she doesn't, she has that forward pressure. I think she has good boxing and decent durabilities to, although make it a close fight, make it one she wins a lot of the times. MBS is a fighter who I think wins at a very, very high clip. On DraftKings, though, it's interesting because 9.5K, you can't trust her to go out there, get submissions and takedowns at a very high clip. She could be a decision fighter here, and at 9.5K, decision won't go very well. With all the volatility, all the violence we have on this card, especially the fights we haven't talked about yet, it's hard for me to get to MBS at 9.5K. However, I do think she has a very, very high floor this week, so if you're looking to play cash, that may be the way to go. Either way, I think MBS gets this done. Won't put a submission past her, however, I can't trust her to go out there and do that consistently. Jim Miller versus Alex Hernandez. This may be the matchup I'm looking forward to the most. Two guys who are known to be round one finishers who have struggled down the stretch, and guys who are going to go out there and put on a show. Jim Miller's been counted out a ton in the UFC, and you can kind of see why. He isn't the best minute winner. He isn't the most physically imposing, but he's a guy who can win fights, whether that be with some power that he's shown recently or a killer submission game on the ground. The problem is he isn't the most physical guy. He's going to be beat by these younger guys in this division. I do think that the archetype of Alex Hernandez is a guy who could really pose threats for him, whether it be on the feet with the power or with that very good smothering top control. The problem with Hernandez is he fades on the stretch. We saw that against Billy Q. We saw that a lot in his UFC career. But is Jim Miller really the guy to push the pace and really wear him out? I don't think so. And I think early on it's going to be the explosiveness of Alex Hernandez winning a lot of these exchanges. Sure, Miller has won some fights recently, but against who? Eric Gonzalez and the ghost of Donald Cerrone? Sure, MMA math means that, Cerrone beat Hernandez and Miller beat Cerrone and he should beat him. I think Hernandez is the rightful favorite here. I think he is the much younger guy with more explosiveness in him, a guy who can finish this fight early and has the ability to stay away from those submission skills of Miller. And I think that is going to be the technical ability of Hernandez getting it done here. Hernandez throws with fight-ending intention, just ask Beneil Dariush, and I think that Jim Miller is going to be in the wrong end of it at his later stage in the career. I think Hernandez is a great option, 8.9K. Of course, you can't look past Jim Miller. He's a finisher. In his last 3 fights, he scored 88, 100, 103. The guy has the ability to finish fights. And I do think he can take advantage of a guy in Hernandez who does fade down the stretch. I just don't think that's a very, very likely outcome. And with all the love I'm seeing for Jim Miller online, I think that Alex Hernandez could go overlooked. He could be a lower-owned option at an 8.9K. I think he has one of the highest ceilings on the slate. I think this is a fight that Hernandez can use to get back in the win column after back-to-back finish losses. It should be a great matchup, but I'm picking Alex Hernandez. Main card time, we have Marcin Prachnio versus Thick Willie William Knight, and this is an ugly one. Marcin Prachnio, 2-4 in the UFC, 3 first-round losses, and the guy has a questionable chin. There's nothing about that, but he did look like he turned a corner against Khalil Roundtree there in 2021. He has been a better version of himself. This guy's powerful. This guy throws with fight-ending intention and is very, very dangerous early on. I do think he can be a problem for almost anybody in the UFC. The problem with him is he can be taken down, and his chin, although it has seen a bit of a resurgence recently, has been questionable in the past. And when you're facing a guy, William Knight, you have to worry about 2 things. clinches against the cage, and these powerful right hands coming towards you. And don't get me wrong, William Knight is not the most technical fighter, and he's not the best fighter we've ever seen. He has a lot of flaws in his game, but I think that what William Knight does best plays into the weaknesses of Marcin Prachnio. However, with that being said, I also think that Prachnio is going to have the evasive maneuvers to get around a stocky, big William Knight and really try to knock out William Knight the same way William Knight was just knocked out by someone in Clark. So to me, it's a tale of two evils. Which guy's going to lose quicker, in my opinion? Because I don't think any guy's going to go out there and look very dominant. It's who's going to mess up. Because William Knight's going to have the ability to clinch this up against the cage and throws overhand rights to really try to find that chin of Prachnio again early on, which will score well in the process. But Prachnio is going to have the minute winning in my ability. He's going to have the better of the striking exchanges. He has power in his own right to touch that chin of William Knight, who, if he has a bad weight cut, is not going to be a good combination. Either way, I see this fight finishing. I don't mind the under in this spot. And I do think at middle salaries, 8.28K, you're going to want some ownership on this side. Gun to my head, I'm picking William Knight, and that's not a good financial investment. I just think that his style is going to play into the weaknesses of Marcin Prachnio. I think he's going to have the ability to throw that overhand right and potentially find the chin. If not, has that control against the cage, try to get him back in the win column. Should be a sloppy fight. Moving on up, we have the 15-5 Josh Parisian versus the 9-3 Jamal Pogues. Jamal Pogues coming off the Dana White Contender Series after a couple wins, and he faces Josh Parisian, a guy who I've kind of hated on in the UFC, a guy whose skill set is limited to a bit of volume on the feet, and that's probably about it. Josh Parisian may be one of the worst ground fighters in the heavyweight division, which is definitely saying something. I mean, he made Dontel Mays look like Khabib, allowed Dontel Mays to go out there and thrust against his face for a while, and I do think that's something that Pogues could implement if he goes for those takedowns, which we have seen him do in the past. The problem is, in his most recent fights, that wasn't the Jamal Pogues of late. Jamal Pogues of late is willing to walk people down, strike from distance, and I don't think that's the best path to victory against Josh Parisian, a guy who is just willing to strike with you and may have the better of the striking exchanges. Either way, it's sloppy. I think that Jamal Pogues has a lot more upside overall in this spot in terms of not only a DraftKings perspective, but also wrestling and looking like a more dominant favorite, whereas Josh Parisian's win condition is probably a close, hairy striking decision. Either way, I don't know how much of a financial investment I want in this fight, so gonna tend to stay away, but have some Jamal Pogues on DraftKings due to that wrestling upside. And towards the co-main event, Jordan Wright 12-4, Zach Pauga 5-1. Jordan Wright, the Beverly Hills Ninja, facing Zach Pauga, the favorite to win it all and the Ultimate Fighter last season. What a co-main event! Not. This is a tough one to watch. Jordan Wright should probably be out of the UFC by now. The guy is killer to be killed, which is great for DraftKings, but he turned into D1 Jordan Wright last time. He went and wrestled for the first round and a half, tired himself out, which he always does, and got knocked out. The pride of Alaska FC, Jordan Wright, doesn't have any defensive tendencies. He is all offense, all gas, no breaks, and he's a guy you don't really want to have too much of a financial investment on because he will go out there and probably light your money on fire. Zach Pauga, we haven't seen much from him. 5-1, he was winning the fight. He has been looking pretty dominant in the Ultimate Fighter. So got clipped by Muhammad Usman and sent to the floor. It didn't look like the biggest punch, so is his chin a question mark? Could be. What we've seen from Zach Pauga, though, is some good minute-winning ability and some good cardio. Not really what we see from Jordan Wright. Jordan Wright is usually a freak. He goes out there, he goes balls to the wall, he tries to end this fight at any way possible, and whether that be through quick submissions, whether that be through power from different angles, he usually does that or he fades down the stretch. In my opinion, Jordan Wright's got to go to that same Jordan Wright of old. He's got to go out there, he's got to go try to find that chin of Zach Pauga, because if he tries to extend this the same way he did last time, it'll be the same result, with the opponent's hand getting raised. So Jordan Wright has to go out there. He has to try to win this fight early or he will fade down the stretch. For that reason, I want a lot of ownership on this on DraftKings. Jordan Wright's a very popular underdog for me because he does have fight-ending potential at all times, $7,000. That is slate-breaking fight-ending potential. 112 against Pickett, 107 against Villanueva. If he wins fights, they score very well because they're usually first-round finishes. Other side of things, Pauga, if he wins this fight, it's probably finished in your own right. Round 2, round 3, when Wright fades. Wouldn't put it past him. Either way, I want ownership of this fight, but the pick is going to be the consistency of Zach Pauga because you can't really trust the Beverly Hills Ninja. And last but not least, we have the main event. We have the short notice replacement, Jessica Andrade, facing the surging prospect, Erin Blanchfield. This is a fun fight. We just watched Jessica Andrade destroy Lauren Murphy, absolutely murder her. And now she's facing a young up-and-coming prospect, Erin Blanchfield, someone who we've seen to be a one-trick pony, a grappler, a very, very strong wrestler, disposed of Molly McCann accordingly. And it's interesting because Jessica Andrade, if she loses these fights, is typically because she's being out-grappled. But to who? I don't know if this is too much too soon for Erin Blanchfield or if she's going to go out there and win over everybody. Because if Erin Blanchfield is able to dominate Jessica Andrade on the ground, she deserves to be at the top of this division. but this is a huge step up in competition. Jessica Andrade is the most violent person in this weight division. She is a ball of energy who has consistent output, great power on the feet, some good takedown defense, a good submission game. And Erin Blanchfield just seems to be this young kid who is a good wrestler with some good top control, but struggles on the feet. We just saw her almost lose a fight to JJ Aldridge until she hopped on that neck. She isn't the most physically imposing. She's still green in her UFC career. She's still green in her MMA career, pardon me. The girl's still young, and I do think it's a step up too soon. Will I have ownership of Erin Blanchfield on DraftKings, though? That's the question. The answer is yes, because her path to victory is taking down and controlling Jessica Andrade. It will not be easy, but if she's able to do that, it's going to score very well. Erin Blanchfield averages 114 points in her wins. She's never scored below 94 points. I do think if she wins this fight, it's going to score very well, but it's not going to be as easy as people see. Andrade's last 3 losses are to Shevchenko, Rose, and Zhang Weili, 3 fighters who are literally the top of the division. So I have to go out there and pick Jessica Andrade. I do think she has fought the way better level of competition, is the way more dangerous fighter, has the takedown defense, keep us on the feet, and the striking to really decimate a green Wright fighter in Erin Blanchfield. However, I am not looking past the DraftKings potential that Erin Blanchfield has down the stretch. But that's going to do it for me here on the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. Walked over each one of these 11 fights from a DraftKings and betting perspective. As you heard, not really the most electrifying betting matchup. I don't have too many bets to really break down for you guys. I will give you guys my quick picks, though. I'm picking Clayton Carpenter. I love AJ Fletcher, maybe one of my favorite picks of the week. I'm picking Nazem Sadhykov, but I would not be surprised if Evan Elder. Evan Elder is a live underdog for me. I'm picking Felipe Lins. I'm picking Jamal Emmers. I'm picking Maria Bueno Silva. I'm taking Alex Hernandez. Taking William Knight, as funny as that sounds, Jamal Pogues, Zach Pauga, and Jessica Andrade. On DraftKings, I want a lot of ownership of the Knight Prachnio fight, the Miller Hernandez fight, the Emmers Ashkabov fight, and then a lot of Fletcher up top, maybe some Elder down low, and maybe some OSP as a GPP play underdog, as well as a lot of that main event. A lot of stuff I threw at you guys, but hopefully you guys are able to gain enough insight into how I'm targeting this weekend's DraftKings and betting slate. If you guys want to know anything more, check me out on Twitter @GamblesGordo. Feel free to drop me a follow over there. And while you're doing so, hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate all the support. I'm looking to grow, looking to hit 700 followers here soon. So please spread the word. Help everybody hop onto the money train here at Plays and Fade Sports. But that's going to do it for me. Everybody enjoy the card this weekend. Let's make some money, guys.